Welcome to season 2 of the Bigger Than You podcast, your go-to weekly podcast that blends energetics and mindset to help you do whatever it takes to bring your vision to life, whilst having fun on the way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. My purpose is to help mission-led business owners and visionaries who want to inspire change by leading the way in a space that otherwise may feel unnerving and too difficult. This is Bigger Than You. Welcome back to the Bigger Than You podcast. I am so excited. I have a guest on our show today, and she's going to be sharing all about how to make marketing manageable. And it's going to be a topic I know is going to resonate really, really well for you guys. And in fact, I was just having a conversation about this with my group coaching program, my Powerhouse Portal ladies. So it's just come at the perfect time. So Amanda McKinney is a business and marketing coach, and her passion is to help accidental entrepreneurs find the confidence within themselves to build a thriving business. Amanda has her own podcast, the Unapologetic Entrepreneur, and she has a background in marketing through her education and master's degree, but also she has real life experience in the corporate world. So I'm sure you're going to share some stories with us, Amanda, but Amanda has almost 10 years in the corporate world and then began her own accidental entrepreneurship journey in 2017. And the common thread that she has experienced and now shares her wisdom and knowledge with her audience is to follow their passion and go after what they love. And I'm so excited to chat with you, Amanda, because it feels, well, I know already from our conversation that we had on your podcast that we're very much on each other's wavelengths. So yeah, really, really excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, thank you, Jenna, for having me today.
And yeah, let's get started with making marketing manageable. I just love that because I literally was having this conversation with one of my group coaching ladies 20 minutes ago about how there is so much strategy out there. And it just, her question was, it just feels so overwhelming, knowing where to start, what to do. And it's a question around marketing, and it literally is how to make it manageable. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. What can you share with my audience to help make it feel more manageable?
Oh, thank you again for having me. And I love this question because whoever asked this question and has led you to ask me to talk about this is so brave for getting to the bottom of it. Because what I typically hear as the marketing coach that I help people with marketing, they say, how can I use Instagram? How can I use YouTube? And they're going straight for the tactical piece. Whereas this question of how can I make marketing manageable is like, yes. This is a great question for us to dive in on, because that then says you're already thinking like, this feels like a lot. I'm already overwhelmed. How do I even start? What do I do? What do I cut out? I don't even know. So thank you for asking this question because it's so good. And just like you share with your students often, it comes down to the first thing you want to think about is really knowing your deep down why for being an entrepreneur. Or, if you're working in a corporate job and you're in charge of their marketing, same thing. Like, what is the why behind what you're doing and why you want to do it? So what I like to say is the deep down why is not the thing that you'll most likely tell people right off the bat. Because most people say, I want to help insert person do this thing. I want to help them with this problem. That, in my opinion, is your passion. Your passion is, I want to help this person solve this problem. And the passion is so important because your passion guides so much about your business. But your why can actually help you on the deep, dark days that you're feeling alone as an entrepreneur. And so it's usually something like, I want to be in control of my schedule. I don't ever want to be laid off from a job again. I want to make more money than I ever could make in corporate. I want to work 3 days a week and not feel bad about it. It's more raw, it's more honest, and that's what we have to know. Once we are very grounded in that why, we can then make better, we can make decisions about marketing that can make it manageable.
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it seems silly to start with the why, but I think it's really important. And I bet you think the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It connects you back into yourself, because the state that we get into is looking at the strategies and trying to figure it out. How to, like you say, how do I use YouTube? How do I use TikTok? But it's not, it's the manageable. That word manageable is empowering, isn't it? Because it's like, I value myself and my time. And when I'm connecting back in with my why, which is creating freedom, or whatever that is, for me, it's
Right.
freedom. That is aligned with manageable, because you're respecting yourself and your why to want to create the marketing manageable. And it's not discounting the effectiveness or your results or anything, because you can choose to do exactly what you want. And by setting that intention from a place of empowerment with an abundance mindset,
Mm.
you go about creating the results that you desire, because you want to make it manageable. You want the same results from a manageable place, because your why is freedom. That's just an example, but I love the energy behind that conversation. It's just so empowering, as opposed to feeling overwhelmed of what do I need to do to get this right. That's much more of a disempowered energy.
Oh, I love that. Almost like a visual or the thought process of something being empowering versus feeling overwhelming. Like,
Mhm.
so good. It is such a good distinction. And that's exactly what we're going after. And so I am going to give some tactical information about marketing, because I could sit on the side of the fence of the why and the deep down, like the mindset work all day long. But when people want to know information, they're like, but tell
Give me
me
some
where to
tips.
start.
Yeah.
Yes. So I will share that, but I do always want everyone to think of why, of
Mm.
when, if you start to feel overwhelmed or challenged with marketing, come back to your why, answer that question, read it out loud to yourself, whatever it works for you. Come back to that why, because it will help ground you as you're making future decisions. So, thinking about marketing, I was thinking about, okay, how can I break this down in like the most simplistic way? And this is the first time I'm sharing it like this. And I think I really like it.
Mhm.
So, I was thinking, how can someone keep it as simple as possible? I've shared lots of simple marketing plans, but here's what it comes down to. And I came up with 3 C's: channels, consistency, and content. So when it comes to channels, this is the different marketing channels you will use. This is the first thing we want to start with after we know our why, because this is where usually things go off the rail, because you're trying to do too much on too many channels. You're
Mhm.
trying to send out emails, use Instagram, film some more videos for YouTube, put them on Pinterest, then put them on TikTok. I mean, like, are we all sweating at this moment? Like,
Mhm.
it is
Even just
so
listening,
overwhelming.
it's like, ah.
Right. And that's how people feel about marketing. I would say keep it simple with your channels. I am always going to suggest email is one of your marketing channels, because it is absolutely hands down one of the top ways to stay connected with people, show your true personality as the person behind the brand, and you control that list. If we talk about social media, you cannot control how many people see your message. It's a wish and a prayer, right? Like,
Mhm.
we're just the phrase of like spraying and praying, of like,
Yeah.
you just put something out there and hope it reaches the right person. Like, that's what we're doing on social. I think there's benefits to social media, but we have to know the limitations of social media, which is you don't control who sees what.
Mhm.
So email is always going to be something I suggest. If someone wants to use another form of marketing, I'm all for it. And I think we can really get hung up on the idea of only focusing on social media. I think that is a detriment. That is something we would be doing that would hinder our business if we only focus on social media. So, what you want to do is find where you are comfortable and where you know your audience is. That's how you
Mhm.
would pick your channels. I'm going to suggest email and one other, and then focus on like those 2 things. Okay, I'm going to email, my people that are on my list, no matter how big or small it is. You're going to use email, and then one other channel you'll focus on. If you can consolidate your energy and your effort into less channels, you will have more bang for your buck. You'll get more work return for your energy that you're putting
Yeah.
into it. So that's how you'd want to focus in on channels. Do you have anything to ask or share about specific marketing channels?
I completely resonate with what you're saying about less is more, because you only have a certain amount of energy. So if you're spreading yourself out on Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere, then
Right.
it's just, you're literally spreading yourself too thin and you've only got a certain amount of energy. So why not conserve it to some more intentional choices? And I love the email thing. I'm only really recently coming round to the fact that email is king or queen, because it's a privilege to be in
It
somebody's inbox, isn't it?
is.
Because we're so, I love to unsubscribe. If something annoys me, I'm not just going to delete it. I'm going to
Yeah.
take my power back and I'm going to click unsubscribe. Like, where did you get my email address from? Get out of my inbox. And so whoever is in my inbox, it's a privilege for them to be there. And that's how I see where my emails land. I see it as a privilege. And anybody who unsubscribes, that's totally fine. Like, I don't, and a teacher's always, your vibe attracts your tribe. So anybody that leaves is totally fine. Like, it's a privilege to land in someone's inbox because, yeah, like you say, it's a direct line, isn't it? It's not spraying and praying. I love that saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely email. And yeah, I love the fact that you've brought, if you're a local service, then
Hmm.
definitely it's not all about social media. Flyers are really important.
Yeah. I have an episode, I can't remember what number it is, but I'll give you the link to it. I did a
Mhm.
podcast episode a while ago because I had one of those moments where I was like, if I have to say this one more time, and I said, marketing does not equal social media.
Yeah.
Marketing can include social media, but it's not only exclusively social media. And I think we can get so caught up in thinking that marketing is only social media. And I get questions every single day about social media channels, every day. It's without fail. And so I say this every day, like, you can do something else. You
Mhm.
can do something else. And actually, email is the number one, right? I would say that it's the number one way people convert, the number one way that most people at least start their business. And sometimes the entire time they have a business is referral based,
Mhm.
word of mouth and referrals, especially if you're a service provider. That
Yeah.
is the case. It can
Mhm.
definitely be the case for products as well, because we refer things. We're like, oh my gosh, you have to get this,
Yeah.
whatever, right? And so email helps people convert and it makes sense. And this is something that maybe will help if someone is like, oh, email, no. Because the whole idea of unsubscribing feels very scary to a lot of people. I see the back end of this all the time of, Amanda, I have too many unsubscribes. Bless and release, my friend. Like they are
Exactly.
like they were not going to buy anything from you.
Yes,
And
exactly that.
therefore you don't want to count them as a potential customer. I
No.
know we're not saying people are numbers here. Like, I believe that we connect on a human level, not a number level. But when we look at it, especially if you're like, I want to grow my business, because that's the people that I tend to attract. It's like, I want a bigger business. And I have to say, like, as you grow your business and your email list grows, you have to pay more for that subscription, right? As your email
Mm.
list gets over a certain threshold, you have to pay more. Wouldn't you want to make sure that your list is only people who are potential customers for your
Mm.
business or who are gaining value from your free content? So you're not paying for people who are just not caring,
Mm.
you know?
And in my mind, I've just got this word unapologetic, which is just you. So bringing it back to you and your whole brand, your podcast, it's be you, unapologetically you, and know that that's okay for other people to unsubscribe because they're
Yes.
just not on your wavelength completely. And that is okay. We are not
Mhm.
for everybody. So when you see that you're repelling some people through unsubscribes, or if we're talking about Instagram through unfollows, that's totally fine because in doing that, the more unapologetically you are, the more you are going to really magnetize in your people. And those are the ones that are going to look forward to seeing your email in their inbox or search out your stories on Instagram. That's what it's all
Uh-huh.
about.
Oh, I love that. Every now and then I'll get that comment of like, Amanda, I love getting your emails because of this. And usually people don't share the good stuff. Like we'll hear negative feedback of like, I don't like this or this isn't working. And that's typical, right? We don't hear a lot of the positive things all the time just
Mm,
because everyone's busy. So when
yeah.
someone does share something positive, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to
Mm,
hear that. And to hear that someone is excited to read an email, like you said, it is such a privilege. Like,
mm,
what a wonderful thing. And that's the other component of email. I feel like we're really honing in on email here, which kind of makes me really excited. But email can feel overwhelming. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm not sure what to share. I don't want people to get annoyed with my stuff. And it's like, it's just a conversation. Just keep it simple. You don't have to go fancy. It's actually better just to do text emails because it will
mm,
actually land in their inbox, right? The more
mm,
images, sometimes that can trip a promotions folder. And so if you keep it really simple and you provide value in some way by sharing an inspirational message or a helpful tip in some way, whatever's connected to your brand, people will then start to say, oh my gosh, I love reading this email because.
mm.
And that's when you can gain that know, like, and trust factor, which everyone talks about in the marketing world. And it's like, how do you do that? Well, you do that through sharing stories or sharing tips that are helpful, helping
Mm.
people solve a problem with your free content is
Yeah.
so helpful. And so email's the way to go, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But you can take the same content that you put in your email and you can definitely repurpose that on your social media if you'd still like to have a presence, but you start with the email instead
Mm,
of backwards. Like instead of saying like, I'm going to focus all my energy on Facebook and take the stuff from Facebook and put it in email, I would say flip that.
mm.
And it does a world of a difference for your mindset for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It was the thing that you said about you'll often hear the negative feedback, but you won't often hear the positive because people are busy. And it's a really nice thing that I like to remind myself of. And that is when you are sharing, when you are adding value to people's lives with the business that you have, whether that's through email or Instagram lives, or if you've got a podcast, just know that what you're putting out there is being well received. And like, do you feel this, Amanda? Like, as a podcast host, you can see how many people are listening, but you don't know who they are. And so I know people listen to my podcast, but I have no idea who they are. And every now and then I'll have somebody message me and say, "Oh, I love that episode." And it's just know that whatever you're doing is being well received. And just imagine, like, on those days when it feels a bit hard or you're doubting yourself or you need a pick me up, be your own hype queen or hype king and just know that you are adding value and you are making somebody's day brighter or more joyful, or whatever it is that you provide, you're providing that, and you're not necessarily going to get that validation or that feedback back, but give that to yourself. Coach yourself through those
Yes.
hard moments and know that you are making a difference, and bring yourself back to your why, and just build yourself up again on those moments where you feel like a bit of self-doubt popping in. Just know that it's making a difference, and imagine people feeling better because of something you've put out there, and they might not ever get around to telling you, and that's okay. Just imagine
Right.
and know that it's happening.
I totally agree. And you know what? At the beginning of a business, when you, especially as an entrepreneur who is so freaking brave for putting yourself out there to start the
Mm,
business, because it is so hard and so scary, also so rewarding, right?
mm,
But for those of us who are like, I'm going to start this business, when you're first starting, you will have crickets happening. Like no one's on your email list, no one's following you on social media, you are hearing nothing, no one's paying, right? Like there's a time period where it feels so hard because you're like, I don't know how to get the momentum that all these other people, let's face it, we're comparing ourselves, all these other people are experiencing. How do I get there? In my opinion, producing content in any way that feels right to you, which we'll talk about the content piece in a minute, but producing content helps you in tremendous ways, both today and down the road. It's kind of like exercising. Everyone says like, you'll never be upset that you started exercising,
mhm.
even if you like hurt yourself, like pull a hamstring or something. Like you're not going to be like, oh, shoot, I should have never exercised.
Yeah.
Like, but you don't see the reward right away.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with producing marketing content, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're producing this content, eventually someone will tell you this was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, I want two things to happen. Number one, I want you to remember that for every person who tells you that, there's 10 other people who didn't,
Yeah.
at least. And as your numbers grow, that number grows. The other thing I would want everyone to do is to start some sort of compilation of nice things people say.
Mm-hmm.
I said this to someone, and I wish I could remember which student told me this, because I would love to give credit where credit is due, but I can't remember because it was early on in my business. But what I created a very long time ago is a smile file. And it's where you put everything into it of like, if someone says this was helpful, if someone said you made me smile today, whatever it is, you just file that away. You put it somewhere. Now, what I have started to do in my business over the last year, which was really helpful, is when I sit down to do my weekly planning, which I do on Sundays, the first thing I do is I read something from the smile file. I set myself up for success because I can get in my own head and I think nothing I'm doing is mattering. Nothing I'm doing is helpful. Nothing I'm doing is great. Like I am a human being who doubts myself every day. I think sometimes people look at people who have a podcast, who are on video, who put themselves on social media and think they're so confident. Nope. I think we just work through the fear. I think we just push through. I think there's a lot of things there. I think there is confidence in all of us, but until we take action, it's not uncovered. Like we have to uncover that confidence through taking action. Producing content will allow you to do that. But I think starting with some kind words from people is always a helpful thing to do.
Yeah, I love that so, so much. And yeah, a couple of things whenever you are comparing yourself, you don't see like before I started working with business owners, I was working with people who were really sort of stuck in survival mode. And so I'd be working with these people on a one-to-one or sometimes in my group program. And honestly, like you'd never know that they would be having the issues that they were sharing with me, because on the face of it, to everybody else, they seemed so confident. They seemed like they had everything going for them and everything together. You would never, ever guess. And so everybody is like this. You know, we seem to have it all together, but we're all humans with a primitive brain and with fears and doubts and things. So don't be fooled when it looks like everyone else has got it together. They haven't. Everybody's got mindset challenges and things to overcome and things to face. So don't tell yourself a story that you're the only one struggling, because it's never, ever the case. And on the energetic side of it, from what you said about creating a smile file of all the nice things that people say to you, that came off the back of us saying, well, we're putting things out there and not necessarily getting the positive feedback from it. Now, if the story in your mind is, I'm putting this out there and I feels like there's crickets and I'm speaking into the void, you're focusing on lack, and we get more of what we are, not what we want. So you want to, whenever you notice that, you want to course correct back to something that feels better. So you're placing your energy somewhere that feels better, and then you're going to get more of that back. So if you want more people to celebrate you openly, start with yourself and start to, whenever you think something good about somebody, pass that on. Because if that's what you desire, then be that first yourself. If you like somebody's hair, say that. Or I met up with a friend, the man coach, a little while ago. We had coffee and he just had a conversation with his daughter on the phone while we were in the shop. And later on, I realized that I thought in that moment, I thought he's a really good dad. And I didn't pass it on. So later on, I messaged him and I just said, I just want to pass on something I thought, because I always like to pass on this kind of thing, you know, acting on intuition and things. And he messaged straight back and he was like, do you know what? I was actually doubting that this morning. So thank you for passing that on. And it can really make a difference.
That's
Just
wonderful.
a kind thought. Yeah, our thoughts, we have them, not all of them for a reason, but if we think something positive or kind or nice about somebody, pass it on, because honestly, it can change somebody's day and even change somebody's week. It can change everything. And you never know how hard people are finding something in a moment. And your one kind sentence to them can be an absolute game changer. So yeah, just coming back to that, be the energy that you want to experience in your life, and you will get that back.
I love that. And it's so important for us to do that. And again, everyone's really busy, right? So not all the time that do we have the time to search down the manager in a store when we notice someone doing something great. Like I
Yeah.
understand that we can't always do that, but sometimes you can make a note to yourself and say, email that store and tell them that that was a really great experience or whatever the case is. And I'll plug this for both of us and all podcast hosts. Like, if you like a podcast, please leave them a review. Because like you said, like we don't know who's listening. We see a number.
Yeah.
And the number is maybe correct. Like the statistics are not great in terms of like the data we receive as podcast hosts. So we're taking some guesses and we're putting out content on a consistent basis. And so if you like a podcast, like do a favor and leave us a review on Apple.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and I didn't know, and I share that more now because I didn't know why it was important when I was a listener of podcasts and not a host of a podcast. I didn't know. So I didn't leave reviews. Now I make a very big point to leave reviews for podcasters because I know how important it is, but we don't know until we know. So now I'm telling you.
Yeah. Brilliant. So we got into the content thing.
Yes. So let's go back to, I'll remind everyone, the 3 C's: channels, consistency, and content. So we talk through channels. So you're going to pick a channel or email and a channel, whatever you want to do. Instead, I want everyone to think about consistency and what is, here's the key word here, realistic. What is realistic for you and is within your boundaries. This is so important because when we talk about making marketing manageable, you have to let it align with your boundaries. If you say, I will not spend time on social media, and then you tell yourself you're going to post on Instagram every day, that is out of alignment. That is not going to work for you. It will feel overwhelming and not manageable. So my suggestion is to start with, what is your life looking like? What are your boundaries around marketing? I believe that marketing is important. A lot of people think marketing is social media. And so they're like, I don't use marketing. And I'm like, actually, everyone who has a business has marketing. You're just not thinking about it as marketing. So everyone has marketing. So you have to figure out how it is fitting in. Again, it could be connections in your local area that refer people to you. A lot of people in the fitness and wellness industry. So let's say it's a yoga teacher that then connects with a doctor, and that doctor refers those patients to a yoga teacher, right? You can find ways to make marketing manageable, but you have to start with, what are your boundaries? What are those boundaries? What are the no-go things I'm not going to do? And what are my time boundaries in terms of how I can spend my time with my business? So that's what you really want to do. And thinking of consistency is more important than frequency. Now, how does the idea of consistency feel to you?
The idea of consistency for me is very important. To me, what feels good at the moment, like this is a bit of a personal share because I didn't see this coming, but it's happening in my world, and that is okay. Like I never make myself feel wrong for how I feel, because that's alignment, right? That's doing what's on your heart, following your energy. And right now, before, Instagram was where my heart was, and Instagram still is where my heart is, but only a specific corner of Instagram. I'm up on stories every single day. It feels really good for me to connect with my followers in stories, but I'm not feeling the content creation side on my grid at all. And that is okay. I only ever do things that when I feel inspired. So I recently went live for the first time in a couple of months on there, and that's okay. But I am recently on TikTok, and that is where I feel my energy is going, like really providing value in terms of video content. And so that makes sense because it feels really aligned for me to show up on stories every day on Instagram. So I feel like I've only got a certain amount of energy, as has everybody. but I'm absolutely not available for pushing at all. And so now, because TikTok has come into my marketing, obviously some of my energy has come out of Instagram grid post stuff, and it's over on Instagram and over on TikTok. And that is really absolutely fine with me, because I know that doing anything with push or force energy, there's just the energetic undertone of that is wrong. So I'm just going to do things my way and throw the rule book out. And it's what I teach my clients. And it always works. Sometimes, like I'm experiencing this at the moment with a couple of my ladies in Powerhouse Portal, my new group program, they get it. They get the whole energetic thing and not doing anything with push energy. But it's such an alien concept, because we're just growing up. We're told to think with our heads and be logical and trust what is trust. Like, we're taught to literally ignore self-trust by eating everything up on your plate, or like, do you need the toilet before we go? Make sure you go. Rather than trusting your bodily cues, we are taught as a child not to trust ourselves. And so I'm teaching this and bringing this back for entrepreneurs. And to start with, it feels strange to just be like, I trust. I'm doing this with trust. I'm not pushing. But then as soon as they start to see the results, they're like, wow, this is amazing. Like discovery calls being booked out of the blue, and just stuff happening where they're just like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, it's happening. It's happening because you're doing the thing that I've taught you to do. Isn't it amazing? And the more you do it and see the results of it, the more confidence you have to just carry on. And I'm like a year and a bit down the line now, and it's honestly so incredible what I've created. And it's all been intuition based. Everything has evolved in its own beautiful way. And it's all down to trust and intuition and following my energy. Can't even remember what the question was. Oh, yeah, consistency.
I love it.
Yeah,
well,
it's consistency.
It's great because you brought up a fantastic point, which I'm so thankful you did, because I often hone in on like consistency with sharing content, because I know how valuable that can be. And I always try to remind everyone consistency matters more than frequency, because everyone seems to focus on frequency. But here's the thing here. You started to go down that path and say like, but I switched, right? I went from Instagram to TikTok. You're not apologizing for it, but you were saying like, I switched. So to me, that felt like, okay, maybe you feel like you weren't consistent because you switched, or because the cadence changed, right? And I would beg to differ. Even though you switched, you're still consistently putting content out related to your business. You just changed the channel.
Yeah,
that's fine.
True. I like that. Yeah. I'm still on Instagram every day on stories.
Yes. And we have to do that. You mentioned Instagram, and I also love Instagram. And about a year ago, I went to a static grid where I have 9 images. I'm actually thinking about changing this at the time, because it feels like it's time to do a little bit of a change. But I did 9 static images that basically serve as like a website on Instagram. And everything else is still there. You can scroll and see the rest of my post, but I didn't post anything to the grid. But I was on stories and I create reels. That was so wonderful. I got to let go of letting things, like creating that content that wasn't feeling right to me. And now I just said, like, I think I'm going to change it up again.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what that's going to look like quite yet, but it's in the process of writing my book and navigating all of this that I'm like, I think I want to change this a little bit now. Because we learn and evolve as entrepreneurs and as humans.
Yeah.
So to think that consistency means I'm signing up to write a blog post once a week for the rest of my life is not what we're going for here. What we're going for is, how can you do what you can to be consistent, because that builds trust with your audience. Now, no one knows your posting schedule on Instagram, but after a while, if you do email like once a week and people don't get an email from you for a while, you might get a few emails that are like, are you okay? Because they'll start to feel, they don't know that it's Tuesday at 6 a.m., but they know that it's regular.
Yeah.
So you want to build that trust. But consistency means showing up and being unapologetic about how you're marketing your business. And if you can find a cadence that works with your life, it helps you set up a system. I don't know if you're a system person, but I'm very much a systems person. So like if I just, was just winging it, that would feel very unsettling to me.
Mm.
But for me, I'm like, I know I send an email every Tuesday at 6 a.m. That feels secure to me.
Mm.
So that's the path that I go down and makes more sense to me. There's other people that I coach all the time and they're like, I don't like that. I'll just send it once a week.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. So the other piece of the puzzle here is, so we've gone through channels, which you want to pick one or two, whatever feels right to you and where your audience is. Consistency is finding a rhythm that works within your boundaries and aligns with you, and you can be consistent with showing up for your audience. And the third piece is content. This is where everyone ends up like, I don't have anything to say. I don't know what to say. Yes, you do. Like, absolutely. Yes, you do. You listening, you have tons of things. You are so helpful, and people are waiting to hear from you. Even if 15 or 50 or 5,000 other people do the same thing as you, they still want to hear it from you. They're waiting to hear it from you. So, in terms of creating content, I say answer real questions. So, if you could sit down, if you and I were having some coffee or tea or whatever, if we were sitting and you said, I don't know what to say, I would say, what are 6 questions that someone has asked you since you've started your business?
I
And
love
then
that.
you write those 6 questions down. And that is 6 emails. That is 6 blog posts. That's 6 podcast episodes. That's countless social media posts, right? Because you
Mm.
can create so many more social media posts from one piece of content. So it's really understanding your student and figuring out what are they asking.
Yeah.
Now, if someone is brand new, they'll say, no one's asked me anything yet. Then I would go and say, okay, what is the topic that you're focusing on, no matter what you're doing in terms of a service or business? Like, what is the topic that you're focused on? Go to Google and type in something and see, because Google will also give you related searches. Like
Mm.
if you typed in business coaching, it's going to give you related searches of like how to make money in 2023. Right? Okay, that's a great question. You should answer
Mm.
that question. Start with what you can find online until you have some people ask you a real question. Like you can supplement real life questions with online searches, but there's no real replacement. You really want to ask real questions. Just like
Mm.
you started this podcast episode with, I was talking to my students and they want to know how to make marketing manageable. So you reached out to me,
Mm.
right? Like you're answering a direct question from your
Yeah.
students. That means they're going to listen to it and they're going to love this information. Maybe they don't love everything I say, but there's probably a nugget of information that they'll take away and use in their business, which is exactly what we're trying to get to.
Yeah. I love that. And just bouncing off something you said was, and we talked about this on your podcast, we talked about imposter syndrome, didn't we?
Mhm.
And it's such a common thing where you're just like, well, how am I different to all the other people doing what I'm doing out there? Well, like exactly like you said it, there is only one you, your energy, your experience, your opinions, your life, just you as a person. And you are the right person for so many people out there. So empower yourself, get yourself out there and find your people, because yeah, there's only one of you, and that's amazing. And that's even more reason to be authentically you. So people find and know and experience you and your energy.
Mm-hmm. Like it's one of those things, we can have those moments. I don't know about you, but like I can have those moments with friends and business friends and colleagues. And I'll say like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. And I'm going to be all in on whatever this offering is because this is really what I want to do, or I'm going to start this podcast or whatever. And then I get by myself in this office and I'm like, can I really? That's human, right? Like we're human and we think that. And it's going back to the fact that yes, you have helped someone, even if someone has not paid you yet. You have this idea for a business in some way because you helped someone along the way. Maybe you
Mm.
helped yourself,
Yeah.
right? Maybe yourself was the first person and now you want to help more people. But the thing is that you have a way in which of describing whatever you're doing or sharing with people in a way that's unique.
Yep.
And I recently had a podcast episode, it's episode 178 on my podcast, that shares my student, Tess. She shared how she figured out what her niche was. Now, Tess has been my student at the time of this recording for over a year. And I talk about niching down every day. I mean, there's so much content inside my membership on social and anything that I've ever done on the podcast about how to niche down because it is so hard for people. Like, I totally get it. And she has been paying me for over a year to help her with marketing, right? And what helped her niche down was actually hiring someone else. She's still in my membership. She's still working with me. But the thing is she needed to hear it in a different way. And we talk about it on the podcast because I said, what was different? Like, I know this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation or question for you because I'm asking it, but what was it? And she said, I think everything I learned from you and from others helped me get to the point to hear what this other person said.
Yeah.
And then it clicked.
I experienced that just this week too. I've literally been saying the same thing to one of my clients over and over and over again. And then she went and heard it elsewhere and she was like, oh, it's just clicked in, Jenna. I'm like, okay.
Yes.
But like, it's nothing, no shade on me or shade on you or anything. It's just the brain needs to hear things so many times. And sometimes when it's explained in a slightly different way, boom, it lands. And that is fine.
And that's why it's like we all, like, if you have the burning desire to start and grow this business, no one's saying it's going to be easy. It's definitely not going to be easy. I'll be the first person to say it's actually going to be really, really hard. I think it's easier to go work for someone else because of a million different reasons, but it's going to be very hard. It's also very rewarding. And once you have that fire and you're like, I'm committed to doing this, like, there are people who are waiting to hear from you. Like, I think about when I started, and Jenna, when you started, of like, you started with this idea and now you know people's names that you had no connection to before. That to me is fascinating. And every single day that I'm doubting myself, I think there's a person, I don't even know her name yet.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I'm going to work with.
It's that passion, it's that fire. And my podcast, by the way, Amanda, is a year old today. It came up on my memories. Actually, I think it's tomorrow, either today or tomorrow, a whole year old. And it's like, I never, ever, you didn't know what was going to come, in this past year, but the most amazing things, the most amazing conversations, the most amazing clients. And like you say, people I don't even know all over the world are listening. And that started because of a fire in me to want to get my message out there. Well, I remember just being frustrated talking on stories, and I literally only had 60 seconds. And I was like, I've got so much more to say. I want to start a podcast. Here we are, years down the line. And it's connected me to you. And it's just the most amazing thing, isn't it? To have such interesting conversations and be able to share them with the world too.
Yes, I love it. And so I hope as someone was listening to that, they were like, that gave them the poke to the fire, because the fire's already there, right? The fire's already burning. The ember is there. It's just like, sometimes you have to like poke at the fire to make it grow a little bit. And hearing inspirational stories of like, and just like you, I really hesitated starting a podcast because I was like, I don't know if I can commit to doing an episode every week. I don't know. I was really nervous. And now it's like, should I do 2 a week? I'm legit thinking about adding more because it's like, I've got so much. It's funny how that works.
There's so much parallel, Amanda, so much parallel between us, because last week I had the same thing drop in. I was like, I've got more to say. And my mantra is, let it be easy. How can I make something happen easily? Because I'm not available for push, like I said earlier. And it dropped in. I was like, I'm just going to hit record and publish that. And it's like a little unedited series. Whenever I've got something else to say, I hit record and publish. Literally no edits. It just goes out there. And so, do it. If you've got more to say, just get it out there. Just, in a nice little unedited series. And you know what? I think people are curious to know what's on the unedited version. So the listener count on that is way higher than I anticipated. So it's really cool.
Oh, okay. Now I've got the idea. So I'll give you credit if I end up doing it for sure.
Amazing.
I love it.
Oh, it's been so good to have you on, Amanda. I feel like we could talk for hours. So maybe there's another conversation to come down the line. But final thing to share? What's on your heart that you've not said yet that you can share with our audience?
I feel like I could just keep going on the idea of like, don't give up. Don't give up. Tap into you unapologetically, which is really hard. You said the phrase of like, Amanda, that your whole brand is being unapologetic. And that just fueled a fire within me because that is a recent shift that I made in my brand because I realized that I was chasing someone else's definition of success. It was about a year ago, and I really started to shift everything and really see like, how can I stop the noise and interrupt that noise and be who I am? It's not that I was being fake before by any means. I wasn't being fake. I was just not necessarily following, like you share so much, my intuition, my like not being available for the push. And I'm still working on that. I wish I could say it with confidence like you, maybe in another year, right? We're all a work in progress. And so I would say, like, as much as someone can just hone in on being the unapologetic entrepreneur that they are, the more they're going to feel successful, no matter what their definition is. And gosh, I wish I could hug every single person who's a hugger. If you're not a hugger,
I love that.
I'm a hugger, but like that's the type of energy I wish I could just like wrap up someone and say, like, you've got this. You've totally got this.
It's so good. And by you giving yourself permission to do that and be that for yourself, you are showing the way. You're the beacon of light for everybody else. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been wonderful. Really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you? What would you like to share with our audience?
Oh, everyone can find me at amandamckinney.com. So that's where everything lives and breathes, is on my website. And if you're curious about getting my emails, since I talked about emails so dang much on this episode, I have a fantastic free resource on boundaries, which I think your audience would love. All you have to do is go to amandamckinney.com/boundaries, and you can grab that free download. It has a lot of things pulled from my book. So I just wrote a book. I'm so excited about it. If anyone is interested, you can go to amandamckinney.com/book for that. But the free resource on boundaries would be the first step, I would say.
Amazing. We will share that link in the show notes for everybody. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you.
See you all soon, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Bigger Than You podcast. If you found it valuable, please forward it to others who you think might benefit from listening, and be sure to subscribe to get the new episodes when they release. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave a rating or a review, as it really helps the show to grow. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jenna Holloway, or on TikTok and Instagram, and my handle is @IamJennaHolloway. And you can find links to whatever we cover in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.